So what will it take to get other big corporations like the Googles and the Apples and the Facebooks into Bitcoin? Do you just expect it's a matter of time, or what's needed to make it happen?
I think on the operational P&L side, I think they'll build Bitcoin into the Google Pay, Apple Pay, into Facebook because they need to do that to compete with PayPal and Square Cash. That'll happen naturally because of the tech imperative. And I think they'll do that because that's in their best interest to do that. I think on the balance sheet side, the most important thing would be the accounting treatment. Right now, accounting isn't kept up with the rate of technology advance. And most of the rules surrounding accounting for digital assets were put in place before any public companies owned any. A year ago, you couldn't find any public companies that owned $10 million worth of digital assets. And now you have billions of dollars held in public companies. The current accounting treatment is to treat digital assets as an indefinite intangible. An indefinite intangible would be, you could characterize it as the most conservative accounting treatment you could apply to any property or any asset. If you were to apply indefinite intangible accounting treatment to your apartment, that would mean that you start by booking it at the price you paid for it. And then on Saturday night, when you're out at a party, you go to every single person, even the drunk ones, and you ask them if they'll buy your apartment from you. And if they say yes, you ask them what they'll pay for it. And if they say, I'll give you $100, then you have to write down $100. That's the price for the apartment. You go back and you account for your apartment as $100, and you write it down to $100, and you take that as an operating loss for the period. And you say, looks like I lost all that money on my apartment. And then later on, if the rest of the world thinks it's really worth $10 million, you still carry it on your books at $100 because once upon a time, the market value of the apartment was $100. So you see, it's a prejudicial accounting treatment, and the fair value would diverge radically from the gap or the book value. And that creates an opacity situation where, if I'm looking at your P&L, it looks like you have $100, but you own a $10 million apartment outright. And now I say, well, it looks like you're poor, Natalie. I'm not going to invest in you. And you're like, well, why, let me explain. And so then you start explaining, and then I get distracted and I go talk to the next person. It's very complicated to explain your balance sheet and your P&L when you have indefinite intangible accounting treatment. So if you're a conservative CFO at Google or Facebook, you're going to look at this and you're going to say, I just spent 20 years creating a optically beautiful P&L and a beautiful balance sheet. And if I put this asset on my balance sheet, and if there's volatility and it trades down, then I'm going to have to take these big write-offs, and I'm going to have to explain it to the shareholders, and I don't want to have to explain anything. So I think the short is accounting is probably one of the single biggest drivers that if that is ever placed at parity with other securities, like if they give it accounting that's similar to the way an ETF or a stock or another asset is accounted for in a public company balance sheet, that would remove a big hurdle for a lot of treasurers and CFOs. There are other things, but I think that's probably the most interesting thing that I can put my finger on right now.
Well, on the retail level, we're in such an interesting time with all the meme stocks and crypto speculation with the altcoins. And I think Peter Schiff tweeted just last week or so that a lot of people are buying Bitcoin to get rich. People buy gold to stay rich. People are buying Bitcoin to get rich, which is essentially why he thinks they'll be poor. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think you have a much better chance of getting rich buying Bitcoin than buying gold. I think that if you want to get rich, then you want to find some big tech dominant digital network that everybody needs, nobody understands, and nobody can stop. So who are the rich people in the world? Steve Jobs got rich on Apple. Bill Gates got rich on Microsoft, right? Mark Zuckerberg got rich on Facebook. Jeff Bezos got rich on Amazon. Larry Page and Sergey Brin got rich on Google. What's their criteria? They all created a digital network that's dominant, that everybody needs, that nobody could stop, that nobody understood when they bought the stock, and then they didn't sell it. If Jeff Bezos had sold Amazon stock when it traded down 80%, and it did that 5 times, it traded down 95% once. If he had sold it, if he hadn't had, had courage to hold the thing when digital retail traded down 95%. If he hadn't held it, he wouldn't be the richest person in the world right now. You know, Steve Ballmer is worth $100 billion. What did he do? Didn't sell. Like, what was the brilliant thing that Steve Ballmer did in order to be worth 100 billion? He didn't sell Microsoft. Okay, so what do they have in common? They're all big tech. If you have a big tech network and you can put hundreds of thousands of businesses on it, or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people on it, and you can replace something in the physical world in the 20th or the 19th century economy, then you've affected a digital transformation of the civilization. The problem with gold is you're not doing a digital transformation of the civilization. It's a 5,000-year-old idea. It stopped working in 1914. If you want a good digital transformation idea, Twitter, Facebook, Google, Square, Bumble, Tinder, Uber, Airbnb, it's Instagram. It's not complicated. We've got 100 examples in front of us. The digital transformation of blank. You know, Bitcoin is the digital transformation of property. Gold is not. You want to get rich, your only hope is to find either to create an asset that is going to appreciate by a factor of 100, or to buy an asset that is going to appreciate by a factor of 100. The only assets that will appreciate by a factor of 100 or 1,000, assets that 99% of the population doesn't appreciate or understand. If you go down the street and you ask 100 people, do you think Apple is a valuable company? You're going to find that 50 of them agree with you. If you would ask the question 20 years ago, do you think Apple will become a $1 trillion company? The answer is no. I mean, at one point in time, Michael Dell said to Steve Jobs, back in 1997 or so, you should give the money back to the shareholders and shut the company down. If you went back to 2007, when they roll out the iPhone, everybody didn't agree with them. Okay, well, maybe it wasn't going to work. By 2009, you could see it was going to work. By 2010 or 11, it was pretty obvious. By 2012, 4-year-old kids wanted an iPhone for Christmas. So in 2012, 9 years ago, 4-year-old kids wanted an iPhone. And if you gave the girl an obsolete eBayed 2-generation back iPhone for her birthday, she throws a temper tantrum because nobody wanted the old iPhone. They wanted the new pink iPhone, whatever. So you had that observation, and yet still 98% of the world didn't quite get it. You could have made some money. If you want to get rich, you're going to have to actually buy something that the majority of the uneducated public doesn't agree with you on and doesn't understand. When you do that, you're going to have to have studied enough so that you have conviction that you're right and not they're right. If you've studied something for 1,000 hours and they've studied something for 1 hour, and they think it's garbage and you think it's good, then you can reasonably assume that's a chance for you to make a wise investment that'll make you money. If you've studied it for 1 hour and they've studied it for 1 hour, now you're just going to be in a coin flip. You don't know. You're going to be easily swayed. So I think in general, Bitcoin meets the criteria. It's something that is a big tech network that is underappreciated, that has massive upside potential because of the technology and because it's a solution to everybody's problem on the planet.